everyone, I'm Renae Kerrigan, Planetarium Director at the Peoria Riverfront Museum, and I'm here to tell you about Apollo 13. Today is the 50th anniversary of the launch of Apollo 13, which launched on April 11th, 1970. Of course, this is the mission that iconically had a problem. It would have been the third mission to land on the moon, but there was a problem about 3 days into the flight, and the crew was not able to land on the moon. They did, however, get home safely, and that was a huge triumph for NASA and all the people who worked to bring them home. So we're making a series of videos to tell you all about this mission that we'll be showing you over the coming days. Apollo 13 was commanded by Jim Lovell. Jim Lovell had been to the moon on Apollo 8, which was the first mission to orbit the moon and get home safely. So he had seen the moon up close and personal. He was eager to get back to its surface to explore for the first time because he didn't land on Apollo 8. It was also crewed by Ken Mattingly and Fred Haise originally. But a few days before the flight, Ken Mattingly learned he was not able to go to the moon. He had been in contact with someone who had a case of the German measles, and the mission surgeons were concerned that he could make himself sick or his crew sick while on the way to the moon. So a few days before flight, they replaced him with his backup, Command Module pilot Jack Swikert. Now, it turns out that having Ken Mattingly on the ground was really important for the crew being able to get home safely. The command and service module for Apollo 13 was named Odyssey. The command module is this cone-shaped piece of the vehicle that you see right here. That's actually the only piece that made it back to Earth on all the Apollo missions. So that whole massive Saturn V that launches, just a small little cone comes back to Earth with the crew inside. The service module, which is attached to the command module, is the part of the spacecraft that had the problem in Apollo 13, and it has the main engine in it. The lunar module for Apollo 13 was named Aquarius. This is a picture from a different mission because they did not get to land on the moon on Apollo 13. The lunar module was instead used as a lifeboat for the crew as they made their way back home again. The goal of Apollo 13 was to land in the Lunar Highlands. Now, this is the older area of the moon. The moon has the lunar maria, which is the geologically younger surfaces on the moon, and the lunar highlands. Geologists were really eager to get samples back from a lunar highlands region. They thought that perhaps in this area of the moon, they'd be able to get samples of the original lunar crust, which could teach them how old the moon was when it formed. And the previous two missions, Apollo 11 and 12, had both landed in Maria. So this would have been the first area to land in one of these highlands areas on the moon. And so it's too bad that they didn't get to land, but we went back later in Apollo 14. So the launch of Apollo 13 on April 11th went pretty normally. The crew made it to orbit very successfully, but a few minutes into the launch, the rocket, this massive Saturn V that you can see launching here, the largest, most powerful rocket ever built, it started to shake around like a pogo stick. It started to oscillate. I imagine that was very scary. The astronauts knew they were sitting on top of millions of pounds of explosive fuel, but a second stage engine just had to shut off a little bit early, and then the shaking stopped and the rest of the launch went very smoothly. After a 3-hour Earth parking orbit, that was standard on all of the Apollo missions, the astronauts fired a translunar injection burn to get them on their way towards the moon. The last part of day 1 of the mission was the command module separating from the Saturn V, turning around and docking with the lunar module, and the two vehicles started making their way away from Earth and towards the moon. Day 2 of the mission was pretty normal. The only main thing that happened was a mid-course correction burn just to get the crew on the exact right trajectory towards the moon. The astronauts got to observe a comet, but people in mission control and in the media sort of were a little bit bored on this day as the crew was cruising towards the moon. This was the third mission to the moon at this point, and a lot of people in the media had kind of stopped paying attention at this point. The Apollo missions had seemed a little bit routine. Of course, all of that would change the next day when the problem in the service module occurred. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Apollo 13. We'll be back with more videos describing the rest of the mission. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave us a comment and we'll do our best to answer them for you. And we'd like to hear your stories. What do you remember about the Apollo 13 mission? Do you remember watching the crew get home safely? How did that impact your life? Again, if you have a story to share, please leave us a comment and we'll try to make a video summarizing some of those stories or answering your questions. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Apollo 13 mission with What's Up from the Dome Planetarium. Have a great day.